Okay, so the name of the project we're going to make is called Puppet PM. Anybody want to take a guess? so what do you think this might be?
Sounds like the version of the puppet drug you take at night.
The puppet drug. Okay, so I have this line of hair products made for puppets. Whoa. Hear me out. Okay. No, this stands for Puppet Project Management. PM is for project management. So, so I had this idea, so I figured it'd be kind of a cool project to write in class and then upload it to the App Store, then we can just see how many people end up downloading it and that kind of stuff. You know, so we'll write the light version or whatever, so we can actually finish it in class. All right, so here's kind of the idea. Let's say that you have 10 workers and 1 or 2 project managers. And let's say you have 15 projects that you're currently working on. Different size projects, blah, blah, blah. Well, the way you might represent these things to each of the 10 workers is you might have something here. Actually, I'll show you. You might have something like this. That's it. No, that's not it. It's actually close to it. There it is. So you might have something like this, where you have all the developers across the top, and then you kind of have a stack of projects they're working on, but at any point in time, whatever's at the top of the stack might be the most important project. This is where the puppeteer part comes in. So the project managers, they might want to shift projects around to make these things make sense. Kind of make sense? Ish? So let me quickly here, I think I have something on here I can show you. How do I send this? Well, it doesn't matter. We'll just draw it up in here. Okay, so the idea is that we have, I'm going to kind of draw some pictures. Oh yeah. Let me go into it here so I can follow what I've already done. All right, so we have different things that kind of go on here. We have the idea of a project. We have the idea of an employee. We have the idea of a role. We have the idea of a client. Okay, so let's have these change colors a little bit. So we'll have project stay blue. We'll have this guy be red. Roles will be green. And clients will be black. Perfect. All right, so these are different types of things. All right, so we have, we'll just use in our example, we'll have 3 employees. Let's just have 2. So we don't have too much clutter on the screen. Okay, and the employee each employee is going to be working on some projects. All right, now what's a project? Well, I might have a couple of clients. And maybe this client is associated with just to keep it simple. See, that client's associated with those 2 projects. This client's associated with that project. And then let's give ourselves another client. And then this client is associated with those 2 projects. All right, let's say that we have a couple of roles. Maybe one role is programming, another role is graphics. Just using this from a software perspective. Okay. So here, dev, graphics, Mike, Dave, so maybe in this case, maybe Dave is both a graphics person and a developer person. He can fill both of those roles. And maybe Mike is just a developer person. Okay, kind of makes sense? So we have all these different things going on. Now, so we would have an app that would give the puppet master, if you would, 3 different views. So we have a project view. We have a client view. And we have an employee view. All right. Now, the goal of this thing is to be able to see at a glance who is working on what. Okay? This is project management, just like you would have out in the, just like the stuff you talk about in the software engineering class. Okay, all the planning stuff. So what you want the app to be able to do is give you at a glance who's working on what and when. And you have 3 different ways of seeing it. You can look at a project to see all the different tasks that are associated with a project and who's working on it. You can look at it from a client view because a client might be associated with a couple of different projects. So you can look at it for a client and see all the projects that those clients are working on, then dig in and see who's working on each of those projects. Well, actually, what you would do is you would see at the client level who's working on stuff for that client right now. And then the employee view would be similar to what I showed you a minute ago, where you have all the different employees and what are they working on. Does that make sense? Okay, so this would be kind of the high-level view of what we're trying to accomplish, where a project has a name, it's associated with a client, maybe we have a date, and then it has a list of employees assigned to that project. So with that in mind, maybe we call this project P1, P2, P3. Well, maybe Dave is also working on P1. So we can just get rid of this side of things to clean it up. So these guys are 2 pointers to the same object. Okay? So we have some development going on P1, and at the same time we have some probably graphics going on P1. Okay? But it's the same project. So we have a list. If we were looking at this from the project's perspective, we would see P1 at the top and then who the developers are that are working on it, or who the employees are that are working on it. If we're looking at it from the employee's perspective, which is that's kind of the view we have right here, we see our employees and what they're working on in order. Does that make sense? Now the idea where the puppet master side of things is, let's say you just got off a phone call or something like that. This deals with it's a communication problem that we're solving. And it only works, I think, in smaller groups. But let's say that you're a project manager. So realistically speaking, you have another person in here who is a project manager, who very well might also be associated with some of these who very well might be associated with some of these projects. But generally speaking, this is the puppet master. Okay, now let's say that Jim just gets off the phone with the client associated with P3, and something about P3 just became a super high priority or something like that. Well, the way this would be handled right now is Jim would either get on the phone or send an email or send a text to Mike saying that, hey, right now we need P3 up to the top of the stack. That's what you need to work on right now. Or send it to Dave. We need P3 if it's both graphics and development, whatever it is. Something just changed and now we have a new hot project. Well, wouldn't it be cool if Jim could just come into this app and reorganize things? Just a couple of swipes. And as soon as he did that and hit save, all the affected parties would get push notifications. And maybe emails as well. So it all just happened. So from the perspective of the project manager, Jim, he's like the puppet master. He has actual resources out there working on stuff. And Jim can just literally play with their life by sliding projects around and things like that. And behind the scenes, he never actually has to have real communication with them because the app actually does all the communication. That kind of makes sense? Okay, so I thought an appropriate name for that would be Puppet PM, Puppet Project Management. But the idea is that you're really just a puppet master. So what we want to do in here is we want to write version 1 of this project. Realistically, this would probably have some level of authentication, right? But for us right now, we're probably not going to put any authentication into it. We'll just assume that the person who downloaded the app is the puppet master. Okay? So when you first come into the, what are some things you should be able to do in this app? So I just downloaded the app. Chances are it's a blank slate, right? I don't have employees, I don't have roles, and I haven't put in any clients or projects. So there are 4 types of resources here that this app is built to create, of which I have 0. So now I need to start entering in my business, correct? So we need to have the ability to enter in employees and enter in roles and enter in all these things. Okay, so let's talk about each of these. I think role is probably the easiest one. So maybe we do roles first. What is a role? A role is a name and a description. That's what makes up a role. Make sense? Okay. If you were building something to enter in a role, let's actually jump back here for a second. We'll design out our main VC here. So main VC is probably going to have a couple different things on it, right? It's probably going to have like a manage button. And then it might have a client view button. Project view button. Oh, hello. And an employee view button. So maybe there's 4 buttons on that screen, where manage takes us to the part of the app that allows us to add employees, add roles, add those kinds of things. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's start off by creating this main VC. So what I'm taking you through here is kind of the way that I might grow an app. Now, how many of you have had the software engineering class? All right, so at a high level, what I'm about to do is I'm about to design a screen here, then go over to the Xcode and create the screen. Design the next screen, go and create the screen. What's wrong with that from a software engineering perspective? Because wouldn't you agree, when you learned about the stuff in the software engineering class, it seemed like forever before you would get into code, correct? Okay. Now, I'm arguing that for this particular instance, this is better. Why? Would you say we generally understand the problem?
Yeah.
Generally. We understand the problem at least at the high level. Would you say this is one of those problems that we really need to zero in on each individual screen to think about what should this screen do? Okay? So we're going to have lots of opportunities since we're going to code and then back to design, and code and back to design. I usually call this agile development. Okay? So it's something that I like doing. You solve the initial problem. We have a major understanding. Now let's get the ball rolling, because what ends up happening, what I have found in software development, is let's say you spend all this time designing, you get burned out on design, and towards the end, your design starts going down the tubes. You're half-assing it and that kind of stuff. Then you spend all this time programming. Same thing. Start off strong, like, oh, finally I'm programming, and then you get burned out on that. Well, with this, you're going back and forth, so you're never getting too much of the same thing at the same time. But what's wrong with this approach compared to in terms of what you learned about in the software engineering class? Software engineering was a lot about project management in teams, right? When you have more than one resource working on the same project. Okay? In this case, we're one resource, one central point. So we don't need to worry about what person X is doing and how we might affect that. Does that make sense? So don't necessarily take this to the bank as the correct way of doing this stuff. So we'll go into Xcode. Create a new Xcode project. Empty application, of course. We'll call this guy Puppet PM. And we're going to make this for iPhone only. I'm going to leave core data assigned here because we might want to come in here and use that for an example, but actually I think we'll end up using cloud storage here. Because wouldn't you agree that if you're the project manager and all of a sudden your phone got destroyed, you probably don't want to lose track of what your current projects are and who's working on what and all your employees and all that. So we'll look at some of that stuff. All right, so we'll go ahead and save this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and right click. We're going to create a new file. It's going to be an Objective-C class. Just wanted to make sure it was still recording. Okay. For some reason I thought that said 2 minutes, not 21 minutes. I'm like, whoa, something bad happened. So we'll create our main VC, and this guy is going to be a UI view controller with a zib for our user interface. Okay, so we'll hit next, hit create. And here is our main VC. So we want to go ahead and design this. Now remember, we want to have 4 buttons on the screen. We want to have a manage button, a client view button, a project view button, and an employee view button. At this point, we do not care how pretty these look. Let's get them on the screen. Let's get them functional, because later on we can go back and replace the button with a picture or something like that, because we know how this works, where all we have to do is quickly hook up an outlet or an IB action, and things just start working again, right? So we're trying to create a functional skeleton prototype of our application. So come back in here. I'll drag a button out here. This button is going to say manage. Drag another button. This one's going to be employee view. This will be client view and project view. I wonder, I think I might be able to line these guys up. Clearly not. Okay, that's fine. Good enough. So that's what my main VC looks like. And just so we can identify it, I like throwing a navigation bar up here. And we'll call this guy main VC. Okay? So that's my main VC, and we want to go ahead and have that added into our app. So again, we're going right back to what we started with weeks and weeks and weeks ago with what is the first steps to creating your app, and that is creating the navigation controller, creating an instance of main VC, creating an instance of main VC, creating your navigation controller with its root view controller being main VC, adding your navigation controller's view to our window, and turning off the navigation bar. So we'll go and do that. So that's in appdelegate.h is where we'll start. inside the interface, I'll create, well, I need to import ManageVC.h here. So inside my interface, I'm going to create a ManageVC pointer. I'll just call it MVC, and I'm also going to create a UI navigation controller pointer called NC. Create those two variables. I would say that a very, very high percentage of all your apps, as I'm teaching you how to make them, would start exactly like this. Then we go over to the .m file, appdelegate.m. We go to our application did finish launching. And now we start giving things some value. So I'm going to say MVC is equal to ManageVC alloc init. NC is equal to a UI navigation controller alloc init with root view controller MVC. NC set navigation bar hidden to yes. And finally, self.window add subview nc.view. So those are our 4 magic lines that happen inside here. Create an instance of our main view controller, create an instance of navigation controller, and initialize it with the root, with our ManageVC root as the root view controller. Hide the navigation bar that comes with all navigation controllers because we like to use our own. We like to make our own. And then ultimately set our window, which is our very, very, very back canvas. Add a subview to him, which is the view associated with our navigation controller, which is the guy who's at the top of the stack. Make sense? Okay, so now I should be able to run this. And here we'll run it on a iPhone 5. There's my ManageVC. Now we probably want to move this bar down a little bit because you see it's I think this top bar is 20 pixels wide, so we'd actually probably start ManageVC off at 20. So come up here, go to measurements, set X to 20. That'll put it about where it's supposed to be. Okay, and it does seem like it's complaining about this alignment crap that I... trying to possibly undo that. Oh, here we go. All right, so now we have our working main VC with the bar on top, kind of above everything. All right, so we need to start off, as we think about our app, we need to start off by having our manage button work. So maybe take us over to a manage VC, right? Well, what will manage VC be? Let's go back to our drawing board here. Manage VC is probably going to also have some buttons on it. Now remember, what are we trying to accomplish here? We have roles, we have employees, we have projects, we have clients. So we might have a manage roles button. Manage employees. Manage clients. And manage projects. So maybe we have those 4 buttons. Okay. So now we got to go build Manage VC. So we'll right click, new file, Objective-C class, Manage VC. It's going to be a subclass of UI view controller with Zib for user interface. I'm going to come into main VC here. I'm going to take all those buttons. I'm going to hit Command C to copy them. I'm going to come into Manage VC. I'm going to paste them, steal my buttons. All right. We decided we're going to have one that says Manage Roles, another one that says Manage Employees, another one that says Manage Clients, and another one that says Manage Projects. Okay, and then we'll put our bar here at the top. Set Y to 20, so it's spaced correctly. And then we'll call this guy Manage VC. Again, remember, we're trying to create a skeleton. So kind of a functional wireframe of our application. Okay, now, the way I'm going to get to Manage VC is from within main VC. I want to be able to click on this Manage button and for it to take me to Manage VC, right? How do I make a button do something, Simon? Answer the question, be quiet. IB action. All right, so we're going to go into mainvc.h, and we'll go ahead and prototype an IB action. So I'll create an IB action called manage button pressed. Then I'll go to mainvc.m and actually implement it. Okay, and what do I want Manage Button Press to do? I want it to create a brand new ManageVC and push it onto my navigation controller. Right? Okay. So in order to do that, I need to make sure I have access to ManageVC. So I'm going to import ManageVC.h up top there. And just so you know, you could actually delete this here. You don't need that code. It's an either or thing they gave you. So you can either use the code they gave you up there, or you can use the .h file for your interface. Does that make sense? Okay, so manage button pressed, what am I going to do? I'm going to get my navigation controller. How do I get that? I say self.navigation controller. So that gets me the navigation controller that this self is currently in. Main VC is in. And what do I want to do? I want to push a view controller onto that navigation controller. What view controller am I going to push? I'm going to push a ManageVC alloc init view controller onto it. And yes, I want it animated. I did need to put it inside of a variable because this guy right here ultimately boils down to a pointer to an actual ManageVC. So I just used it directly rather than put it in a variable then use the variable. Make sense? And then lastly, I need to go hook it up. Hook up the IB action. So I'll go into mainvc.zib, click on file owner, go to the outlets. Here's my manage button pressed. Drag it over here. We'll do it on touchdown. Go ahead and run our app, and now we should be able to click on the Manage button, and it takes us to ManageVC. Now, ideally, we'd probably like to be able to get back as well, right? So let's go ahead and write that ability. So we'll go back to ManageVC. I want to know where it's complaining about this crap. This is all that crap I tried to do when I was trying to line it up. Got it. All right. So we'll go to managevc.zib, and we want to put a back button here. Is that a back button? Navigation item. That looks like a back button, right? Well, didn't like that.
Bar button item? Yeah, you need a bar button.
Yeah. I just assumed that this guy looked like a back button. It's just stupid. Is this my bar button item or is this a normal button? That's my bar button item?
Oh, wait, no.
No, that's a toolbar.
Yeah, you're right.
Bar button item. All right. So I'll click this. Probably lets me choose what kind of button I want this to be. And we're gonna, is there a default back? That's what we used, I think, before, isn't it? No, guess not. Let's just say custom. And we'll say back. Okay? So, in order to make that work, I need to also create an IB action. So we'll go into ManageVC.h. We'll go ahead and prototype a method. So we'll create something that's an IB action. And this guy is going to be back button pressed. Copy that. Go into the .m. I'll get rid of this stuff up top because I like to use the header files. Implement it. And what are we going to do? We're going to say self.navigation controller pop. View controller. Animated? Yes. And lastly, go and hook that up. ManageVC.zib. Give myself this side window. Click on File Owner. Click on Outlets. Back button pressed. Drag it to the back button. Let's hit play, and now I should be able to go back and forth. So far, so good. Okay. So now, like we said we were designing before, we were talking about roles. A role is a name and a description. So if I click Manage Roles on ManageVC, what are things that you would like to do inside of Manage Roles? So let's do this. Manage Roles VC. What are the abilities that we should be able to accomplish inside of Manage Roles VC? Well, what are examples of roles? Let's come back here. For example, a role could be project manager or developer or graphics. Those are examples of roles, right? Specifically, a role is going to have a name like project manager, graphics, developer, as well as a description that gives kind of a job description of what that role entails. So if I'm managing roles, what are the things that I need to be able to do? I need to be able to create new roles. Actually, I spelled roles really funky there, didn't I? Yeah, there we go. Manage roles, VC. Okay, so I should be able to create roles. What else should I be able to do? Should I be able to edit existing roles?
Yeah.
I might want to change the name or the description of an existing role, correct? Now, let's say that we have a project that has, well, let's just say that this particular project manager is managing 15 different kinds of roles. So when I edit a role, well, let me ask it this way. How would you display 15 different kinds of roles on the screen? Probably a table view. Because we don't, if we have 30 people using our app, there might be some people that are managing 2 roles. Another person managing 8, another managing 15, another managing 300. So we need something that can adapt to the types of roles, to the number of roles we might be dealing with. Does that make sense? Okay, so this particular guy isn't going to be a plain Jane view controller. It's going to be a table view controller. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that as our kind of our finishing point for today. So I'll right click here, do a new file, Objective-C class. Instead of a view controller, we're going to choose a table view controller as the type for this guy. This guy's going to be called ManageVC, and we're going to create it with a zib for user interface. So we'll hit next, create it. So then we get a guy that looks like this, in which case we will immediately delete that because we don't like using the default view controller or table view controller. The reason we created this guy as a table view controller is because we wanted all those data source and delegate methods created for us. We like controlling the user experience ourselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here. Is this my view? That's a window. This is a view. So I'm going to drag a new view out there. And I'm going to click on file owner and hook that file owner's view up to this guy. And then just so I don't forget, I'm going to go into the .h file, ManageRolesVC.h, and instead of this guy being something that's a UI table view controller, he's just going to be a UI view controller. Yet all those extra methods were included in there for me. Okay? So next time, where we're going to want to start is creating this interface where we probably have a toolbar up here, navigation bar, with probably a plus sign in it for adding a new role, and then a table view below it that lists all the current existing roles. And then we want to be able to click on individual existing roles and have it take us to another page where we can edit them, like change the name, change the description, or even delete them. Does that make sense? Okay. So we'll stop there. Remember, everybody's still working on their assignment that's due Monday? Huh? I think Monday. I think it's due Monday. If I make it Wednesday, you're just going to procrastinate till Tuesday. So, all right. I'll see everybody on Friday.